Hello everyone, welcome to lesson number 2 of Let's Talk Tarot. This is all about helping you to understand what tarot is in my eyes, how my readings flow, some of the different nuances of different decks. Today we're going to talk about how different decks look in different formats and comparing them so you can see them laid out together. There are different energies in every deck that you choose. Even though you buy a deck that says it is based in the style you use, which would be Rider-Waite is the style I use, it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be exactly the same. So there's a little bit of a learning curve, and you should do your research before you actually buy something to depend on. So it's sort of like you have to, in language, in life, you have to have a home tongue first, right? You have to have your native tongue before you can branch out and learn what other languages relate to yours and what words those are. It's the same thing with tarot. So a lot of tarot readers, you should always start off with a basic deck, and that's usually the Rider-Waite in the very most rudimentary form. Now I don't particularly care for the darker original tarot decks. So this is a Rider-Waite deck that's been re-illustrated by Hansen Roberts. Okay, so Mary Hansen Roberts redid this deck, and that's why the images are so very, very cheerful and happy. So before I get into that, I want to talk about real quickly. You guys hear me talk about Sun, Moon, and Rising. I say that when I open up the reading and say, okay, this is for all Gemini, Sun, Moon, and Rising. This is for all Scorpio, Sun, Moon, and Rising. What that stands for is your natal chart, N-A-T-A-L. That is the positioning of the stars in the sky when you are at the time of your birth and the place on the planet. So you can Google that. You can get that for free off of, you just Google what's my natal chart. There are several ones. There's astrology.com. There's all, I can't think of all the different names, but you can find one that does, you don't have to enter in your email address and all that. You can find one that will let you just put in your date of birth, your time of birth, and your location of birth, and it'll spit out what you have. It won't ask for your personal information. I think astrology.com does, but I've used it many times and it's never done anything outlandish. I don't get a bunch of emails and things like that. But that's, buyer beware, enter at your own risk. And if you know an astrologer, have them do your natal chart for you. That is not my practice. I am a tarot reader, and I stay on my little end of the street because astrology is massive and I do not have the expertise in that. So I refer it out to all of those lovely astrologers. So that's what that means, is your sun sign is your main sign. So I'm born under the sun sign of Libra. If you have a cusp, which is where you're close to where the two signs switch, either at the end or the beginning. So say you're born January 21st, okay? Well, that's where Capricorn changes from Capricorn to Aquarius. So that would mean your Capricorn, Aquarius cusp. That means you need to watch both of those readings, because you could have things that coincide and maybe it shows up in both. So you get some confirmation that way. And if you know your sun, moon, and rising, then you know 3 different readings you can watch to see if they chime into what's happening with you. So there's a brief explanation of that. It helps you get a broader picture by watching all 3 videos and knowing what your 3 energies are, because it helps you to understand, well, maybe that's more in line with what's going on for me now, because the planets have now aligned in that almost close to the same sequence, right? So there you go. That's the explanation for that. Now we're going to begin with looking at various ways that these cards look in different decks. I've chosen the aces out of 4 different decks, and we're going to look at them in a conventional way and see the imagery, and see also kind of show you something that I wasn't aware of myself, and then it became very, very clear that I needed to be more careful about researching the decks, which I mentioned earlier for y'all. So let's do the cups first. So first of all, the names of the cards can be different. All of mine say cups, except for this one, and we'll talk about that in a second. But the rest of them, they can be called chalices, they can be called cups, bowls. Okay, these are the names that they come in. But these are all cups, and you can see the images look very different. So this one looks sunny and bright and very inviting and festive. It looks like a new dawn, a new day, right? Beautiful sunshiny energy. That's out of my mini deck. Then we have this beautiful golden goblet. And you can see there's a darker energy in it, but it's more mystique, right? It's a lot of the all-seeing eye of the universe, the new cycle of the moon it represents, and the Holy Grail, and visualized as the elixir of life and all of this beautiful energy. So more mysterious. This is more conventional, gilded, beautiful, but this is, now we are into the more ornate. Now, this is a modern card, and this is the Ace of Cups. So there's actually a hand holding this cup, thrusting it out of the earth. This is the Mystic Mondays. Is it Mystic Mondays or Mondays Mystic? I can't remember. I'll look in a second. Then we have this little sucker here. This is the Ace of Mirrors. So this is called the Chrysalis Tarot, and it's got these beautiful butterflies, which is what attracted me to it. I had no idea that it would have a different set of suits, because it said based on Rider-Waite. Well, it is based on Rider-Waite, but they call their images differently. So you'll see as we go, this one is way different, and you have to know your basic English here, or the basic language, before you can branch out, because you got to have something to tie it to. If you don't know what this ties to, you would not know what these mirrors stand for. So that's important to know. So here's our basic starters with this, and you can see all the different energies. And that also means in the cups energy, you know, that's the water sign energy, okay? So this is all about being very much in emotion, family energy, love, harmony, healing, a lot of healing energy in this, psychic energy, beautiful flowing energy. This is what the cups stand for, okay, as a suit. Now we have the rods. They can be called rods, staves, batons, and in this case, spirals. So this stands for the wands in the suit. So we have, did I put everything? Yeah, canes. They can also be called canes. So there are different names and different images here. You see these look very different. So this is the imagery of the flowers and abundance and being very fruitful and prosperous, and the beautiful sun in the background just beaming all get out, radiant. Then we have passion, fire, igniting, this can be igniting something, a spark within yourself, okay? And it stands for the fire sign energy, so it is about action and work. And this, now we have, go back into the mystique here, we have, this looks like a magic wand. It looks like a beautiful crystal wand. So these are both wooden, and this turns crystal. So the imagery makes a difference. So whatever your card imagery is, drives you to a different energy, a different conclusion, a different vision, okay? And then here's this lovely Ace of Spirals, which is the wands in this deck. You can see how it could get confusing. That's why when I open decks and I practice with them a while, because you have to get used to what you're seeing and how it relates. What card is that? Oh, it's this card. Oh, okay, then I know what it means. I know the basis of it, and then I can go on my intuition and use the imagery to help guide me. But I've got to know what these are, and these are very much, so you can see how they're similar, and then they go very different. So here we have the swords. Now, strangely enough, The swords are just called the swords in everything that I know of. And I even Googled it to see if there were other names, but it is called the swords, except for this deck, which is the scrolls. So this makes sense to me, because if you were thinking of the swords in a form of knowledge, which it is, it talks about intellect, that would be a perfect fit. So it's not the visualization you think, but it does match. As well as the spirals being very much a series of events, okay? So, and I think of a wand as if you were to wave it, you would wave it in a spiral, right? And then, and this is my relation to it, this is how I identify it in my head, this is how you have to be able to interpret. And like this mirror, you see the water pouring out of the mirror. So it's that liquid form that you're seeing. And look at this, it's a seascape, so it is tied to the water. So you have to find your own way to interpret your language of each one of these. Now we've got the coins. The coins have a ton of different interpretations. They can be called coins, pinnacles, discs, rings. There are just all these different imagery for them, and so let's see, I'm going to run out of room, so I'm going to just put them in the middle here. You see these two are very similar. Okay, they're shaped. This one's got the pentagon shape, okay, and this is a pentagram on it. And that's also, just so you know, when you see these coins with the pentagram, they are a sign of good luck. The pentagram is a form of protection with the ring around it. So it is not a devil sign. It's a misinterpretation of that for some people. This Ace of Pentacles, you see now this looks like an orb, right? But this is the same deck, and these are the pentacles, and they look like rings. So I just wanted to show you that within the same deck, they can have a different image. And then in the Chrysalis deck, the coins are stones. Now I get that because back, from what I understand, back before there was actual money, stones were a form of currency or a form of weight. You know how to, weights and measures. That's how they got the different levels of what they would pay. So what something was worth was whatever the stones weighed. So this is my brief rundown of how the decks look differently, how the words are called differently, and even within my own same two decks that I use all the time that you guys see me using. Here, let me show you. These two cards, and you'll hear me stumble on it all the time. If you pay attention, you'll hear me do it. Wads. I do that. I say wads. And rons. I confuse them. I just did it, so it's perfect. So trying to say rods and wands, and I've got both of them here and present, and I will call one of them the wrong name and use the first letter of each one and switch them. So it happens that way because I'm using myself to kind of channel the energy. Just realize that sometimes the energy of channeling is not connected to reality, and you can drift a little. So it happens, and so if you hear me making those kinds of mistakes or calling a card by the wrong suit, I can be looking right at it, and it'll because your logical brain has to be unplugged to let yourself be ethereal and get the messages you need. So I hope this makes sense. Oh, I didn't finish. Let me say this one thing. So we have the wonderful part about having each suit is it does mean something. So we talked about this being family and love and healing and the elixir of life. Okay, this is the cups, carries weight. It has important things within it. It can mean fertility, it can mean prosperity, all of the things I mentioned earlier: family, love, light, intuition, healing, all of the new beginnings, wonderful things. Cups are good. When people are sharing a cup with you, they are sharing their heart, or they're being genuine. So we have the ace of, or not the ace, but the actual rods. Okay, so when we're talking about, first of all, all the rod energy is action, passion, vitality, virility, sexuality. It can mean work, because, you know, rods are considered the action thing. So, but this here shows a different view of it. So if you don't already know the basic view of it, then your interpretation of this would be completely different. So allow yourself to be open-minded if you are doing tarot, but if you're watching someone do tarot and they're using a different deck, understand that your interpretation may not be exactly, sorry, I get the hiccups, be exactly the same. Just because the imagery that person's receiving information doesn't mean it's going to be textbook definition. It shouldn't be all the time. Not every situation is the same, so there needs to be room for interpretation. So when we're talking now about, let's get these out of the way. When we're talking about the sword energy, like I said earlier, this makes sense because it talks about knowledge. So air sign, air energy, okay? So we've got water energy, fire energy, air energy. This is talking about when these swords show up, it talks about making changes, divine thought, inspiration, quick action. It means being given information. It means intellect. And it also means being in a place of power, or allowing yourself to cut yourself from restraint, okay, or cut yourself out of a situation. It can mean, some people see that it means like if they're having a surgical event, right, actual knives. It can be also removing something that you decide that you're going to cut it loose and free yourself of it. The swords come in as other people may be coming at you, or you may be standing up for yourself in defense of yourself. A lot of times you'll see the Archangel Michael. It's about protection. We carry a weapon for protection, and that's the swords. And sometimes it's our intellect. So that's where the knowledge part comes in. And it also stands for the ethereal. So the swords stand for that psychic connection as well. So there's a lot of different ways to use the interpretation of the swords. Now, for the coins. So coins have grounded energy. Now this one depicts it, these two actually depict it pretty well, because it's showing you in the natural. So it's showing the flowers, which are a natural thing that's on the earth. These, in this deck, show a lot of green, which means in the now. It's in the current energy. It means in this lifetime. This is meaning commitment, security, financial abundance, investment. It can also mean making a commitment, okay? So when somebody puts their money down, they're no longer, they're serious. You know, the old phrase, put your money where your mouth is. That's exactly what this is talking about, is being very much, if you're gonna do all the big talk, then put up or shut up. So here's that kind of energy, being very grounded and centered in this here and now energy, and putting yourself out there. The stones, grounded, solid earth energy, very, very, very clear to see that. But I'm just showing you this fourth card here because I want you to see. I've got other decks like this. People give you decks, and when you're a reader, and sometimes they don't understand how far to the left field some of the interpretation would be, and I'd have to work really hard just to learn that deck. That deck has energy that I have to interpret, so I have to almost become intimate with the energy of the deck, and I just don't have time to learn something that's unless it really, really, you know, speaks to me. So I hope this made sense to everyone and helped you to understand how decks are different and how the suits work. In our next reading, or in our next video, we'll be talking more about the individual cards in the deck and how we use the energy to interpret. But this for me is just another way to clear the air for people who want to know what the differences are between the rods and the staves, and the, you know, why does this person call it this, and it's in my deck it says it's this, and how to relate. So just know that's why it's usually easier to learn a basic deck and then move into the more advanced interpretations of tarot. So I hope this helps. Thank you all for being here. I enjoy all of this, and I'm glad to be able to teach and help everyone to come along with me during this journey. Many blessings to you all. Don't forget, we have the weekly mystic. We have the daily readings if you want to do affirmations with meditations. And thank you. We'll have more of these as well. And thank you for being part of the monthlies. Don't forget to watch those. Love you all. Many blessings. Have a wonderful day. Namaste.